Have you figured out who's really behind Damien's murder and the frame job against Nick? We think we might have. Young and Restless murder mystery is in full swing right now, but everyone on screen seems to be innocent despite the ongoing finger-pointing amongst the guests. Who is the real killer then? We think the culprit may be someone that no one would ever consider. Much like Young and Restless fans, we've jumped from theory to theory as we try to solve the mystery of who struck down Damien Kane just as we were getting to know and like him, and who would then try to frame Nicholas Newman for the murder. Right from the beginning, we guessed that, spoiler, really killed Damien, but they've since denied it. They may still prove to be the guilty party in the end, but we're setting that hypothesis aside for the time being. We also questioned if, spoiler, is playing a high-stakes game with Kane. This is looking less likely due to Nick's involvement, but it's not an argument that can be completely discounted yet based on what was said in dialogue. Coming up, Young and Restless spoilers have Victor and Chance confronting a new suspect, but whoever that turns out to be, we're sure they won't be the culprit. No, this is going to drag on a bit, we're positive of it, and then a big twist will come at the end. That massive twist brings us to our latest theory. Colin Atkinson is alive and is the real killer. Young and Restless had to have brought his name into this for a reason, right? Where, you may wonder, could we possibly be going with this? Well, if Colin had been lurking in the hedges, he'd have seen Kane's misery over Damien and Lily, and he'd have heard Nick threaten Kane, killing two birds with one stone. The former mob boss could have taken out Damien to make sure Kane gets his happily ever after with his ex, and framed Nick to take the fall as payback for his bullying. Setting up the Newman would also hobble the powerful family and help Kane's bid to take over Chancellor, and would ensure that Kane won't go down for the murder. As one viewer pointed out, Colin would also possess the skills required to get the job done. Heartbreakingly, Colin's portrayer Tristan Rogers is battling cancer, but the soap vet just popped up on General Hospital as Scorpio and could have already taped scenes at Young and Restless to wrap up the murder mystery. Do you think Colin is alive? Vote! Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel, Pulse Canvas. It's me, Julie, here. I hope everyone is having a wonderful day. Keep watching. So let's dive into today's video. In his sleeping car, Kyle and Audra are kissing passionately on the sofa. She leads him onto the bed, where they continue. As he climbs on top of her in his towel, he stops kissing her. "I'm on to you," he says. Audra feigns ignorance, but Kyle's sure she can figure it out. Shoving him off, she says she didn't plan to come in at the crack of dawn to seduce him. Kyle is confident she's planned every move since they got to France. Audra claims that she was scared, and this was all spontaneous. Laughing, he says she doesn't leave the house without an agenda. Kyle wondered how far she would go to get what she wanted, but didn't think she would sink as low as using the murder of Nate's brother to manipulate him into bed. Audra insists that's not what happened, and points out Kyle was just as into it as she was. He claims he was faking. Audra keeps repeating that she hasn't been faking, and she's upset by his suggestion. The abbot jokes that Amy and Nate may have a hard time understanding how she expresses her grief. Flustered, she says she panicked and turned to him. Smugly, he asserts that was all just part of her plan. Audra's insulted that Kyle thinks any of this was premeditated. This is just what happens when you lose control of your emotions. Audra gets off the bed as he continues to smirk. Kyle wishes she would admit that he beat her and Victor this time. She claims Victor has nothing to do with this, but he's sure the Newman has been pulling her strings. Audra insists that Victor simply sees her talents. Her ex knows she has talents, but they have nothing to do with cosmetics. When Kyle threatens to tell Nate about this, she says he'd never believe him. Kyle is sure that this was just part of an endgame that she and Victor cooked up to split him and Claire up. Audra tells him he's a joke. He's sure that Victor is bankrolling Vibrante for this purpose alone. Throwing up her hands, Audra says that she knows nothing about a plan. She doubles down on being a great businesswoman who can make Victor a load of money. Kyle tells Audra she's failed at everything miserably. Audra says it's pretty pathetic that he had to make an arrangement with Victor to continue seeing his granddaughter. Kyle suggests she keeps coming up short because she thinks people are stupid. She brags that their plan to impress Kane was working. Kyle explains he was just stringing her along. As she accuses him of responding to her with great passion, he says the kiss was just to see how far she would go. Picking up his pants, Kyle says he discovered she would go all the way. Audra thinks Kyle is trying to convince herself he wasn't into it. He zips up and accuses her of being pissed off that he beat her at her own game. Audra declares that everyone has seen him flirting with her, and the only reason they haven't had sex is because she stopped it. Kyle says he was only playing a role. It will be a relief not to have to pretend to like her stupid perfume war idea any longer. The biggest mistake was that both she and Victor failed to understand how deeply he loves Claire. The last thing he would do is jeopardize what he has with her. Showing her the door, he declares that he will let Victor know she's failed again. Billy is alone and mulling things over outside the maze when Jack appears and asks what his brother makes of the feud between Nick and Kane. Billy's more concerned about Jack accusing him of letting him down again. They rehash the deal they made. Billy was supposed to walk away from pursuing Chancellor and run Abbott Communications. Instead, he's chasing after it again and has turned the new company over to Sally. Jack declares that no investor would tolerate flipping a CEO into place without consultation like that. Billy tells his brother he will get his money back. Jack is more concerned that his brother hasn't dropped his quixotic quest for Chancellor. Wanting to jump into a partnership with a potential murderer doesn't inspire confidence either. Billy admits he hasn't been able to forget Chancellor, and that has something to do with righting the wrongs that Jill and Victor have done to him. He accuses Jack of just being concerned about his money and gives him an ultimatum. Is he in or out? Jack accuses him of having no game plan. Billy repeats his ultimatum louder and louder. Eventually, Jack reminds him that Abbott Communications is a non-starter without him. Declaring that he's done, Billy says he is pulling out of their partnership and will find an investor to buy him out. They can do their best to forget this ever happened. Billy storms off, leaving Jack to shake his head. Sharon is with Phyllis in the club car, arguing about whether Kane is guilty of killing Damien. Phyllis doesn't appreciate that Nick thinks she's cold enough to look past murder for a job. Nick returns and Phyllis assumes he's come back to apologize to her. He thinks she's out of her mind and claims he has even more evidence that Kane is guilty. Nick explains that Kane has cameras everywhere. Not that that's unusual for a billionaire, but all the footage of the murder seems to have been erased. He asks Phyllis to explain that. She says it doesn't prove anything. Phyllis thinks the real killer erased the footage and point out it's a lot of accusations and suppositions. Nick insists that Ashby is trying to frame him for murder. He's frustrated that Phyllis will only believe what that guy claims. He's fed up and wants to hike down the mountain. Phyllis begs him not to do that. Nick accuses her of plotting with Kane. Sharon also thinks she seems to be going out of her way to back up Kane. Phyllis insists she is only concerned about Nick's physical well-being. Begging, Phyllis reminds Nick that the cops are on the way. They continue to argue about her siding with Kane, and Nick says he's determined to get off the mountain before Kane and his accomplices set him up for anything else. He accuses Phyllis of being on Ashby's payroll. Offended, Phyllis insists that she believes Kane is innocent. Nick thinks she is turning her back on their friendship and child just for a job. She suggests that someone could be trying to frame him and Kane. Finished with discussing this, Nick declares he wants professionals investigating this and storms out. Turning to Sharon, Phyllis says she could have chimed in. She insists that going down that mountain is dangerous. Sharon admits she agrees with Nick. Something has to be done. Standing alone by the maze bar, Billy pours himself a drink and flashes back to Jack, telling him how proud their father would be of him and his new venture. That meant everything to Billy. It's all he ever wanted, and his brother was sorry he ever doubted he had it. Snapping out of it, Billy toasts to making himself proud, with or without his brother. Phyllis appears and says he looks as bad as she feels. Phyllis checks the booze and hopes it's fit for public consumption. She downs a glass and sits. Billy paces and complains about his trust issues with his brother. Phyllis tells him no one likes him going after Chancellor. He never sees any project through to the end and is so easily distracted. He was lucky you'll have his brother fund him, but treated it like a side hustle. Billy claims he had a vision. Phyllis can see that. She also knows that he's very good at convincing people to believe in his visions. Until they don't like my choices, he adds. When Phyllis says that pity isn't a good look on him, Billy claims that no one trusts him. He thinks too big for all the people around him. Phyllis reminds Billy that everyone in Genoa City has treated her like dirt, including him. But she always lands on her feet. She thought she could have a future working with Kane, but now it looks like he could be up on murder charges. She's sure that Nick and Lily are determined to pin it on him. "This trip is a disaster. It can't get any worse," she says. Billy says it's not normal for her to sound so defeated. They agree that Kane is innocent, and then she wonders if they should just get drunk. He points out they need a plan, not a drink. She wants a job, and he wants Chancellor back. They both need Kane to get those things done. Phyllis suggests they come together to devise a plan to get Ashby off the hook. Nick goes to his sleeping car to prep for his climb down the mountain. Sharon shows up and announces that she is going with him. He worries about the danger, but she thinks there is safety in numbers. They both wish that things would just be normal. For the past few months, it has just been one disaster after another. Sharon can't handle thinking about that, so she just concentrates on what's in front of her. Right now, that is going to find the police. There's a knock at the door. Sharon hides in the corner. When Nick slides the door open, Carter is standing there with a goon. Carter says his boss fears his life is in danger, and Nick's threats were concerning. For his safety, Nick is being placed under house arrest. This makes Nick livid. Carter notes it appears he is preparing to escape before the authorities can arrive. When Nick bellows at them to get out of the way, Carter warns that he may have to order the guard to draw his weapon. Sharon steps up, and Carter says she will have to come with them. When they protest, Carter says neither of them has a choice. The Young and the Restless spoilers update for Tuesday, July 22nd reveals that Audra Charles will face her final chance with Victor Newman, while Sharon Newman and Nick Newman tackle a scary crisis. Thanks to Carter and an armed security guard, Nick and Sharon will be whisked into a room together. Carter will make sure Sharon and Nick are locked up tight, so they'll wonder what they're going to do. Despite Carter calling this house arrest, it'll feel a lot more extreme as far as Nick and Sharon are concerned. Sharon and Nick will mull over how to escape, but some danger's on the way that'll put them both at risk. Sally Spectra will become part of Nick and Sharon's storyline in the coming episodes, so look for her to help when Nick ultimately gets injured. As for Kane Ashby, he may not even know Carter has gone this far to separate Nick and Sharon from the rest of the group. Whatever the case, Kane will face off with Nikki Newman on Tuesday's Y&R episode. That'll give Nikki a chance to blast Kane for framing Nick, though Kane will continue to deny any blame in Damian Kane's murder or Nick's setup. If Nikki realizes Sharon and Nick have gone MIA, she'll no doubt hold Kane responsible for that news too. Kane may land on the hot seat all over again, as Nikki and others on the property make accusations. Meanwhile, Audra will scramble to save her partnership with Victor, who won't be pleased over Audra's failed attempt to seduce Kyle Abbott and destroy his romance with Claire Newman. Victor will refuse to change the terms of their deal, so he'll expect Audra to come through on Claire and Kyle's breakup, at least if she wants Vibrante to survive and thrive. Kyle is on to Audra, but maybe she can form a backup plan and still achieve the Claire split that Victor's counting on. The Young and the Restless spoilers say this will be Audra's last chance to figure something out, so stay tuned for updates on any other bold moves she might make. These two will end up sharing more than just drinks. Claire is currently mourning the loss of her father on The Young and the Restless. Meanwhile, Holden has yet to learn about Damian's death, and that's not the only thing they will lose. Their shared grief is likely to bring them closer together. Claire just lost her father, Cole, who died from Legionnaire's disease. Meanwhile, Holden has no idea that he lost Damian. The two were friends and associates. Yet, this is going to be a huge blow for Holden, especially since they both had hopes of taking over Genoa City together. Damian's death has left a grip on Nice. Everyone has been putting on their detective hats in an effort to solve this murder mystery, especially so they can get out of Kane's French estate and head back home. Everyone back at Genoa City needs to know what's going on, especially Holden and Nate. But that's not the only thing that Claire and Holden will be mourning. They will also be mourning the people they love. Claire was in a committed relationship with Kyle, but that will all come crashing down once he jumps into Audra's bed. she's one step closer to securing her future with Victor with her smooth, seductive moves. Holden thought there was hope for him and Audra to reconnect. But she's not thinking about him. All this sadness will bring Claire and Holden back together. We can see these two using alcohol as a salve for their pain. That's where it could get messy. A drunken night out could lead to a passionate night in bed. We're interested in seeing where this relationship is headed. The Young and the Restless spoilers tease that Lily Winters could be an eyewitness to a fresh attempt on Kane Ashby's life. Does this convince her that her ex did not kill Damian Kane in a love spat over her? Kane is suspect numero uno in Lily's mind. She was dating Damian when Kane made his everlasting love for her known, and now her beau is dead. Kane was found with the body, so who wouldn't think he's guilty? Lily keeps squawking about how Kane is a changed man, and she's talking bad about him for keeping half of GC stranded in Nice with nowhere to go. One thing is clear. Kane is holding back info and cell service from the guests, and this won't look good for him when the truth comes out. What does Kane think of Damian's murder? He believes that he was the intended target, and points to his belief that someone is out to get him. Will Kane be proven? Righty if Kane is correct. There is a cold-blooded killer on the loose waiting for another chance to kill him. And this killer could possibly miss again and kill an innocent. However, some fans believe that stiffly starched Carter killed Damian to help Kane reunite with Lily. If this is the case, the plan backfired since Lily hates Kane more than ever. It makes sense that the instigator of the crime would try and make a second attempt on Kane's life to prove he's telling the truth. We know nothing about Carter except that he is loyal to Kane, or so it seems. Looks can be deceiving, and in private, Carter could be a spirited social animal. Nonetheless, we predict that he is not without involvement in this felonious fiasco. How likely is it that the script is flipped, and Lily ends up warning Kane about a wayward Carter? It would be stupendous to see Lily and Kane bond over a botched murder attempt, but anything is possible in the leafy maze. We're going to miss that maze. Tell us, the Young and the Restless fans, do you think that Lily saves Kane's life before all is said and done this summer? Who is getting away with way too much in Genoa City? Genoa City isn't just about billion-dollar boardrooms and glamorous galas. It's also home to some of the most shocking crimes daytime TV has ever seen. With Damian's murder sending shockwaves through the Young and the Restless community, it's time to ask the question, which of our soapy elite deserves to be locked up the longest? Let's start with the great Victor Newman. The man's rap sheet is a mile long. From shady business dealings to tampering with evidence and literally burying people alive, Victor has danced around the law more times than we can count. But does he deserve life in prison? Or just a permanent seat in Judge Judy's courtroom? Next up is dear wife Nikki. Yes, she's a beloved matriarch now, but let's not forget her deadly altercation with Diane Jenkins. Sure, Diane came back from the dead and is living her best happily ever after with Jack, but Nikki still swung that rock and thought she'd ended a life. That alone should have earned her an orange jumpsuit and a cellmate named Big Bertha. Phyllis also deserves an entire wing of her own. She's poisoned people, gaslighted entire families, and even faked her death recently. If Genoa City PD wasn't so easily distracted, Red would have been locked up years ago. Then there's Adam, the resident bad boy with an endless cycle of redemption arcs. He accidentally killed Delia in that hit and run and tried to cover it up. He's poisoned, blackmailed, and schemed his way through more lives than we can list. Adam behind bars? We'd almost miss him, but justice is justice. And don't think we've forgotten about Michael. While he's usually seen as one of the good guys, his shocking past still haunts many. Remember when he tried to rape Christine? Yeah, that was bad. Very bad. And some folks will never forgive him. In fact, there are many who have never bought into his turnaround and still think he should be behind bars. So who deserves the longest sentence? It's a tough call, but in a town where everyone has skeletons in their closets, maybe Genoa City should just build its own maximum security prison. Could Damian make a return from the dead? Another death has rocked the Young and the Restless. This time, Damian is the one to bite the dust after being stabbed in the back. However, Damien's death isn't sitting right with fans, who believe a twist is coming. Viewers suspected that the France trip would be the beginning of a murder mystery. Their hunch was right when Damien was killed when someone threw a dagger into his back. The search is on for the killer, who is still roaming around the chateau. While some fans are playing detective, others are wondering if Damien is gone for good. On Y&R, characters have a habit of returning from the dead. So, could this be the case for Damien? Many fans on Reddit seem to think so. One user believes it's a ruse by Kane and Damien. Whiskey drug simulated death. Kane took the antidote ahead of time. Kane and Damien are in cahoots. Reason Damien go the invite. Kane can't call the local authorities because Damien's kicking back in the chalet. I thought maybe the whole murder was staged by Kane, Damien, and Holden from the beginning of this Aristotle Dumas storyline. With a soap, anything is possible, one viewer responded. The Young and the Restless spoilers for the next 2 weeks suggest twists and bombshells. From July 21st to August 1st, expect Lily Winters and Audra Charles to be targeted. Nick Newman tries to come up with an escape plan, but house arrest could be an issue. Plus, Sally Spectra deals with a shocker. Keep reading, and let's talk about what is coming up in the CBS soap opera. Before getting to the 2-weekers, let's begin with what is coming up from July 21st to 25. Right when Audra is about to get passion, Kyle Abbott calls her out. Audra will try to defend herself, but Kyle won't believe her stories. Then, Kyle realizes that Audra was hired by Victor Newman to split him up from Claire Grace Newman. Later, Kyle tells Nikki about Audra and Victor's plan. The matriarch will likely have a word with Victor, but later. Right now, a man is dead, and a killer is still on the loose. Chance Chancellor will pull Carter for some questioning. At some point, Chance allows Victor to grill Kane Ashby's assistant. However, Carter claims that while he is loyal to Aristotle Dumas, he didn't kill Damien Kane. Later, Carter arrives at Nick's door with a thug. Carter claims that for everyone's safety, Nick is under house arrest. Then, Sharon Newman emerges and ruins Carter's plan. Carter definitely seems caught off guard. There is a fight, and Sally Spectra ends up tending to Nick's injuries. Later, Billy Abbott and Phyllis Summers form an alliance. Kane will continue trying to get the deleted video footage recovered so he can clear his name. At some point, Kane accuses Amanda Sinclair of disloyalty. Then, Lily and Audra are blindsided by someone unseen. Could the killer be making another attack? During the week of July 28th, there will be more clues, and maybe even a new suspect. At some point, Kane will need to allow Chance and the others to reach the outside world. Once that happens, Nate Hastings and Amy Lewis will hear the awful news about Damien. Which storyline are you looking forward to seeing the most in the next 2 weeks? Share your thoughts in the comment section below. Keep watching the soap on CBS or Paramount Plus to find out what happens next. In the upcoming episode of the CBS soap opera, The Young and the Restless, airing on July 26, 2025, trouble is building fast, especially for the Newman family. Nick and Sharon are in serious danger far from home, while Victor and Nikki are doing everything they can to protect their loved ones and take control of the situation. As Nick and Sharon stay trapped in a strange place, things begin to take a turn for the worse. Back in Genoa City, Nikki goes head-to-head with Kane and gives him a strong warning. At the same time, Victor turns up the heat on Audra, demanding that she follow through with an important promise. With secrets, tension, and risky moves all in play, viewers can expect this episode to shake up several major storylines. Nikki on The Young and the Restless has always been very protective of her family, and now she's more alert than ever. With people still unsure about who killed Damien Kane, and some thinking Kane might be involved, Nikki decides to talk to Kane face-to-face. She gives him a strong warning and makes it clear that messing with the Newman family, especially Victor, is a big mistake. Even though Kane says he's not guilty, Nikki doesn't believe him and plans to keep digging until she finds the truth. Nikki doesn't yet know that her son Nick is being held somewhere against his will. But once she finds out, things could get even worse for Kane. Whether Kane did something wrong or not, Nikki is watching him closely and won't let anyone threaten her children. After being caught off guard and locked up, Nick and Sharon now find themselves stuck together in a strange room. What started as a secret mission has quickly turned into a nightmare, and Carter is looking more suspicious by the minute. Nick and Sharon will have to stay calm and work together if they want to escape, but the danger around them keeps growing. There are armed guards involved, and there's a chance the real person behind Damien's murder is nearby. Tuesday's episode of The Young and the Restless will build up to something intense. The threat is getting worse, and someone is expected to get hurt later this week because of it. Audra on The Young and the Restless has been taking risks, and now the pressure is even greater. Victor wants fast results from her, and he expects her to break up Kyle and Claire immediately. If she doesn't, he won't give her the money he promised for her Vibrante project. Even though Kyle is starting to see through her tricks, Audra isn't giving up yet. She'll try to come up with a new plan to stay on Victor's good side and protect her career. But if she pushes things too far, she could end up losing it all. With Victor keeping a close eye on her, Audra has to be very careful with her next move. As they say, 2 strikes and you're out. How will these devastating blows affect Nate? Nate is striking out in life. He's remained in Genoa City, where there's very little drama lately. Most of the bad stuff has been going down in Nice on The Young and the Restless. Now that Nate has been faced with 2 huge blows, he will experience a major life change. Nate has no idea that his brother, Damien, has died. He was killed by someone who's out for revenge in Nice. The mysterious person in leather gloves struck a knife into his back when he wasn't looking. Damien was with Kane when he was killed. The 2 men shared drinks as they talked about love and family. Nate probably won't find out until the crew comes back from Nice, whenever that happens. If anyone else makes it out alive, who knows who else could die? On top of that, Nate lost his girlfriend. Audra is desperate to get her hands on Vibrante. She'll do whatever it takes, even if it means cheating on Nate. It didn't take long for Audra and Kyle to start making out. She knocked at Kyle's hotel room, only to find him clad in a towel. This was the perfect time for her to make a move. She informed him about Damien's passing. The 2 shared commiserations before swapping tongues. It looks like these 2 will be getting it on soon. That means goodbye, Nate. Audra's throwing their entire relationship away for a career. Obviously, Kane's French estate is not a safe place to live. Hopefully, this murder mystery means that everyone will vacate the villa and head back to Genoa City. We'd like to see Nate's reactions to the 2 huge losses in his life. He might rekindle his relationship with Victoria, especially since there are still sparks between them. He might have to do some heavy reflecting on his life, especially with his love life and family ties. The Young and the Restless spoiler reveal that Kyle Abbott will pay dearly for the horrible way he betrayed Claire Newman. What consequences does Kyle have to look forward to when the truth comes out? What will Kyle's betrayal cost him? Kyle agreed to signing a contract with Victor Newman, stating that he would not break Claire's heart. However, Claire's father died while Kyle was on this trip with Audra Charles, a trip that was orchestrated by Victor Newman and herself. Kyle is certainly going to regret his actions. Diane Jenkins warned Kyle exactly what Audra was up to. However, Kyle swore that he could handle this. Audra was not going to get the best of him. Now Kyle can plan for this to come back and bite him. Kyle and Audra have tried to hide this loss of judgment. However, Kyle will pay dearly for that. Kyle will certainly feel extremely guilty for what he has done. Kyle will soon get back to Genoa City and find out what happened to Cole Howard. Kyle will have to face the fact that while he was in Nice getting it on with Audra. However, Claire has no idea that any of this has happened. Will she learn the truth? The truth will come out, probably delivered by Victor along with the contract signed by Kyle himself. Kyle will certainly feel bad for hurting Claire, but Victor will feel triumphant with his "I told you so." Try as he might, Kyle will want to keep Claire in the dark, but there is no way this will happen. Kyle will be held accountable in the end. Claire will be devastated by Kyle's betrayal. How many times did she voice her concerns about Audra? How many times did Kyle dismiss her concerns? How many times did Victor warn her what was going to happen? Claire will be devastated, and Kyle will see that in her eyes. Kyle may have sworn that he loved Claire, but he certainly didn't prove it. Kyle doesn't know what all Victor put in that contract because he never bothered to read it. However, Kyle agreed to pay Victor $5 million, as well as agreeing to move away from Genoa City. Kyle agreed to this because he believed he could keep Audra away from him. What will Kyle do now that he has to face the consequences? Victor will certainly force Kyle to pay him the $5 million that he agreed to pay. However, Kyle may find a way to get out of leaving down. Unfortunately, Kyle must also face whatever fine print that Victor added. How much will Kyle's little tryst with Audra cost Kyle in the end?